This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, August 11th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
A big meeting will take place this week between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin.
It will be about testing Putin.
I'm Jim Roope.
An active shooter situation in Atlanta Friday ended with a police officer and the suspected gunman dead.
He had been struck by gunfire.
I'm Ben Thomas.
President Trump to unveil his plan to end crime in D.C.
Doing all of the policing that they can do.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Inflation data will take center stage this week after a winning week on Wall Street. I'm Jill Schneider.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer met privately with President Donald Trump about how the automotive industry is being hurt by tariffs. Donna Warder, Washington.
Weekend shootings in Chicago, Baltimore, and New York City, plus a quarterback immortalized in bronze. All ahead on America in the Morning. Russian President Vladimir Putin will be on American soil, first time since 2015. Jim Roope reports Putin and President Trump are meeting this week in an effort to end the war between Russia and Ukraine.
The Russian president met with President Barack Obama at the UN General Assembly in September of 2015. President Trump says he'll meet with Putin in Alaska this Friday, but exactly where is unknown. The Alaska Beacon reports if indeed the meeting does take place, it will be only the third presidential summit held in that state. 1984, President Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul II talked together in Fairbanks. Richard Nixon met with Japanese Emperor Hirohito in Anchorage in 1972. A Trump-imposed deadline for Russia to end the war with Ukraine passed over the weekend. NATO Secretary General Mark Roope tells ABC's This Week that the meeting will test just how serious Putin is on ending the war, because there will have to be some concessions.
It will be about territory. It will be, of course, about security guarantees, but also about the absolute need to acknowledge that Ukraine decides on its own future, that Ukraine has to be a sovereign nation, deciding on its own geopolitical future.
As of the filing of this report, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky will not be part of the sit-down. But he has said, after President Trump suggested there might have to be a swapping of territories, that Ukraine will, quote, not give land to the occupier, end quote. Zelensky also thanked European leaders for their support. He posted on X Sunday, quote, I am grateful to everyone who stands with Ukraine and our people today for the sake of peace in Ukraine, end quote. Roope told CBS's Face the Nation yesterday that he believes only President Trump can broker peace.
He basically broke the deadlock. President Trump in February, starting the dialogue with Putin. I think that was crucial.
Roope says sanctions and America sending weapons to Ukraine are tools toward peace, or at the very least, first, a ceasefire.
Putting pressure on the Russians, exactly as President Trump has been doing over the last 6 months.
There are multiple reports that President Trump may be inviting President Zelensky to meet with him in Alaska, but whether that includes a meeting between all three, Trump, Putin, and Zelensky, also remains unclear. I'm Jim Roope.
More is being learned about the man who blamed his illness on receiving the COVID-19 vaccine and opening fire at the building housing the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports the suspected gunman and a police officer were killed.
They came over on the PA and were like, full building's on lockdown. And then there was more cops that showed up, and like there was cops at the door, and no one was allowed outside.
Active shooter situation in Atlanta Friday ended with a police officer and the suspected gunman dead. It took place near the campuses of Emory University and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
The shooter is deceased, and we don't have any civilians that have been shot in this active shooter incident. Thank God for that. We do have a DeKalb County officer that was also shot.
Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum in sound from WSB.
Officers arriving found a critically injured DeKalb County police officer that was down. He was immediately extracted from the scene and taken to Grady Memorial Hospital. Officers could still hear gunfire occurring inside the CVS, the drugstore that is right there at the intersections. Officers moved quickly to attempt to find the shooter and to neutralize the threat to the community.
Shearbaum says officers found the shooter on the second floor of a building across the street from the CDC.
We later found the shooter on the second floor of the CVS. He had been struck by gunfire. We do not know at this time whether that was from officers or if it was self-inflicted. He was removed from the location by Atlanta Fire Rescue to render aid. He did pass at the scene.
CDC employees say bullets struck the windows of several agency buildings.
The CDC campus did receive multiple rounds into their buildings. Right now, as the mayor stated, we are not aware of any injury that occurred to anyone on that location.
A law enforcement official tells AP the shooter was armed with a long gun, and investigators recovered 3 other firearms at the scene. His motive is under investigation. I'm Ben Thomas.
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation identified the shooter as 30-year-old Joseph Patrick White of Kennesaw, Georgia, and confirmed it was the father of the shooter who called police identifying his son as the gunman. The father said his son had been upset over the death of his dog and said his son blamed the COVID vaccine on causing his health issues. The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Get early access to the biggest sale of the year, limited time only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. When we return on America in the Morning, Trump's plan to rid the streets of crime in our nation's capital after these messages. America in the Morning continues with a check of our nation's forecast on where there might be thunderstorms developing. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
There will once again be thunderstorms developing in the central plains from northern Texas and Oklahoma through Kansas and continuing into northern Missouri, eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin. Some of these areas have already been hit by heavier storms this past weekend, and from that saturated ground, these storms could lead to some localized flash flooding. Along with the heavier rain, some gusty thunderstorms could also develop in West Texas into western Kansas, and that could produce some damaging winds this afternoon and evening. Heavier thunderstorms will also be a concern across a good part of the southeast as tropical moisture moves inland. This moisture, along with a nearly stationary front, is fueling the thunderstorm development, especially this afternoon. These storms can impact areas from North and South Carolina into Georgia and northern Florida, and then continuing along the Gulf Coast into Alabama and Mississippi. In a similar fashion, these storms have been developing this past weekend, and additional heavier rain could produce local flooding. This will also keep temperatures down with highs in the upper 70s to mid-80s. Scattered afternoon thunderstorms will also develop in the area between from eastern Texas into Louisiana, Arkansas, as well as northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and Tennessee. We'll have scattered thunderstorms developing across parts of central Illinois, northeastward into Michigan. We have another system moving out of Canada into the northern plains from easternmost Montana into North Dakota and then northern South Dakota, as well as northern Minnesota this afternoon. And these storms could produce some gusty winds, hail, and flash flooding. That's the weather across America. Atlanta, Georgia will have plenty of clouds today with a couple of heavier thunderstorms and a high near 80. Denver, Colorado will see plenty of sunshine and a nice afternoon with a high of 86. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Simply search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The FBI will reassign 120 agents to patrol the streets of Washington, D.C., as President Trump has a press conference later this morning to address his plan to tackle crime and homelessness in the nation's capital. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
President Trump says his plan will essentially stop violent crime in Washington, D.C., which he calls one of the most dangerous cities in the world. He added in a social media post that the homeless in D.C. have to move out immediately and said the goal is to end crime, murder, and death in the nation's capital. This as D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser defends her administration's work to make D.C. safe.
We're doing a really good job.
But she told MSNBC there are things the federal government can do to help.
We want to rebuild our jail, and there are ways that the feds can help with that. But also just doing their part, cutting the grass, fixing the fountains, making sure that federal law enforcement is doing all of the policing that they can do.
Recent numbers show improvement opposed to declining crime stats. Violent crime rates in Washington, D.C. dropped 35% from 2023 to last year, marking the lowest rates recorded in more than 30 years, according to the DOJ. And the Metropolitan Police Department says that violent crime this year is down 26%. I'm Clayton Neville.
Three of America's largest cities dealt with mass shootings over the weekend. In Chicago, a total of 27 people were shot and 5 died from gunfire, which includes 3 shootings in 3 hours in one neighborhood on Chicago's west side. In Maryland's largest city, 1 person was killed, 5 others injured, including a 5-year-old girl, when people eating dinner outside on their porch in Baltimore were targeted. In the heart of New York City, a teenager opened fire in Times Square late Saturday night at a restaurant, injuring 3 people. In that case, the 17-year-old suspect now faces numerous charges, including attempted murder. Coming up on America in the Morning, the electric vehicle tax credit deadline fast approaching, part of business headlines when we return after these messages. Welcome back, and thanks for listening. This is America in the Morning. Here's the Monday Business Report with CNBC's Jill Schneider.
Wall Street will open after a strong week where all the major indexes finished higher. The Dow added 207 points for the week, 1.33%. The S&P 500 jumped 2.5%. The Nasdaq hit a new intraday high, climbing nearly 4% for the week. Apple jumped 13% for the week, its best week in 5 years, after announcing plans to spend about $600 billion over 4 years in the U.S. And suddenly it seems Wall Street cares about inflation again. After taking a backseat to the jobs report earlier this year, inflation data will take center stage this week as investors try to discern whether the Fed will cut rates in September. The latest consumer price index is set to release tomorrow. The producer price index is due out Thursday. Other economic data, including retail sales, also on deck. Shares of Trade Desk plunged 38%, their worst day on record, despite beating on the top and bottom lines. CNBC's Julia Borston is following the stock's ride.
Analysts pointing to 2 main issues: the impact of tariffs on the macro environment, as well as growing pressure from competition and Amazon in particular. Trade Desk CEO Jeff Green saying the big companies trade desks work with are disproportionately impacted by tariffs. Quote, some of the world's largest brands are absolutely facing pressure and some amount of uncertainty. Some have to respond more than others to tariffs. Many are managing inflation worries, the related pricing that comes with that.
Consumers are racing to buy electric vehicles before a fast approaching deadline to claim tax credits worth up to $7,500. That according to auto analysts. Legislation championed by Republicans on Capitol Hill and signed by President Trump in July eliminates the tax breaks available for new, used, and leased EVs after September 30th. The Biden-era Inflation Reduction Act had originally offered the tax breaks to consumers through 2032. Consumers purchased just over 130,000 new EVs in July, the second highest monthly sales tally on record. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman says the company should prioritize growth even if it delays the path to profitability. Altman spoke with CNBC after the release of GPT-5, its latest and most advanced large-scale AI model.
As long as we're on this very steep curve of the models getting better and better, I think the rational thing to do is to just be willing to run at a loss. Right. For quite a while and continue to do that.
OpenAI's annual recurring revenue is now on track to pass $20 billion this year, but the company is still losing money. Consumers are racing to buy electric vehicles before a fast-approaching deadline to claim tax credits worth up to $7,500, that according to auto analysts. Legislation signed by President Trump in July eliminates the tax breaks after September 30th. They were originally offered to consumers through 2032. On Monday's watch list, we'll get earnings from Barrick Gold and AMC Entertainment. A trial begins over the Trump administration's decision in June to take control of California's National Guard, and House Speaker Mike Johnson holds his annual donor retreat in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Jill Schneider of CNBC. When we return on America in the Morning, breaking on auto industry tariffs, one governor's plea. When we return after these messages. Michigan's governor is trying to convince President Trump to change course on tariffs that affect the auto industry. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer met privately with President Donald Trump about how the automotive industry is being hurt by his tariffs. She told Trump that economic damage from the tariffs could be severe in Michigan, a state that helped deliver him to the White House in 2024. According to people familiar with the private conversation, Trump offered no specific comments, but White House spokesman Kush Desai says no other president has taken a greater interest in restoring American auto industry dominance than President Trump. Under Trump's series of executive orders concerning trade, U.S. automakers face import taxes of 50% on steel and aluminum, 30% on parts from China, and a top rate of 25% on goods from Canada and Mexico, not covered under an existing 2020 trade agreement. Donna Warder, Washington.
The man widely considered the greatest quarterback in NFL history has been immortalized in bronze. Correspondent Gethin Coolball reports.
Tom Brady left his imprint all over the New England Patriots record books during his stellar two-decade run with the team. Now he has become the first player in franchise history to be honored with a statue.
3, 2, 1.
The team unveiled his statue outside Gillette Stadium before New England's exhibition game against the Washington Commanders. Brady spent the first 20 of his 23 NFL seasons with New England, winning 6 Super Bowl titles with the franchise. I'm Gethin Coolball.
America in the Morning for Monday, August 11th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour,
President Trump and Russia's President Putin to meet in Alaska Friday. I'm Julie Walker.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended a military expansion in Gaza. I'm Donna Warder.
Texas Democrats take their quorum break out west. I'm Clayton Neville.
Fire to the west, rain and wind to the Midwest, and a humid swamp nearly everywhere else. I'm Rich Johnson.
4 astronauts are back on Earth after a 5-month stay at the International Space Station. I'm Rika Ann Garcia.
NASA says the leader of the Apollo 13 moon mission, Jim Lovell, has died. I'm Ed Donahue.
Apple's new iPhone rumors and the weekend box office. Back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rendy is tracking storms and thunderstorms.
A storm system will be moving out of Canada into the northern plains, and this will cause thunderstorms from easternmost Montana into North Dakota and northern South Dakota, as well as northern Minnesota, into the afternoon hours. Some of these storms will contain gusty winds, hail, and flash flooding. A few gusty storms will also develop this afternoon from West Texas into western Kansas, providing damaging winds and localized flash flooding. And the same system will again be producing drenching thunderstorms through the rest of the Central Plains, through the rest of Kansas, and continuing into northern Missouri, eastern Iowa, and southern Wisconsin. Heavier rain from this past weekend could increase the risk for local flash flooding for some locations. In the southeast, heavier thunderstorms will also be a concern as tropical moisture moves inland. This moisture, along with a nearly stationary front, will fuel the thunderstorm development, especially during the afternoon. And these storms could impact areas from North and South Carolina into Georgia, northern Florida, and then continuing along the Gulf Coast into Alabama and Mississippi. And again, these storms have been developing over this past weekend, and additional heavier rain could continue to produce local flash flooding. This will also keep temperatures down with highs in the upper 70s to mid-80s. Scattered afternoon thunderstorms will also develop in between from eastern Texas into Louisiana and Arkansas, as well as northern Mississippi into northern Alabama and Tennessee. Scattered thunderstorms will also develop in parts of central Illinois, northeastward into Michigan. We'll have dry weather, though, continuing from Kentucky and Ohio into northern Virginia and then northward to New England. But it's also going to be hot with many areas in the upper 80s to lower 90s. The west is also going to be hot and dry with many states seeing temperatures in the 100s. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rendy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. President Trump and Vladimir Putin will meet this week in Alaska to discuss ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. So far, they've not invited Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, a move not sitting well with America's European allies. Correspondent Julie Walker reports that Ukraine has already said no to land concessions to Russia of any kind. And Vice President J.D. Vance, speaking on Fox News Sunday, says the time's come for America's involvement in this war to end, saying it's up to both parties and Europe to decide how to move forward.
What we said to the Europeans is simply, first of all, this is in your neck of the woods. This is in your back door. You guys have got to step up and take a bigger role in this thing. And if you care so much about this conflict, you should be willing to play a more direct and a more substantial way in funding this war yourself. I think the president, and I certainly think that America, we're done with the funding of the Ukraine war business. We want to bring about a peaceful settlement to this thing. We want to stop the killing. But Americans, I think, are sick of continuing to send their money, their tax dollars to this particular conflict. But if the Europeans want to step up and actually buy the weapons from American producers, we're okay with that, but we're not going to fund it ourselves anymore.
President Trump and Russia's President Putin to meet in Alaska Friday to discuss ending the war with Ukraine. Trump suggests exchanging territories.
There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
Notably missing from the upcoming meeting, Ukraine. European nations rallying behind them, saying peace can't be resolved without the country. President Zelensky thanking allies. And warning of what he calls Putin's tactics, saying he fears sanctions and wants to gain territorial spoils for the second time. Zelensky agreeing to Trump's peace proposal, but refusing to give up Ukraine's bid for NATO membership and rejecting acknowledgement of Russia's annexation of any of its regions. Meanwhile, Trump missing his own deadline last Friday to impose sanctions if the Kremlin did not move toward a settlement. I'm Julie Walker.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defends a new military offensive in the war against the terror group Hamas, saying it needs to be done for the safety of both Israelis and Palestinians. Correspondent Donna Warder reports there is growing international condemnation over Israel's decision to militarily take over Gaza City.
The truth is that Hamas still has thousands of armed terrorists in Gaza. It vows to repeat the savagery of the October 7th massacre and to do so again and again and again. It openly professes its goal to destroy the state of Israel.
At a news conference Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended a military expansion in Gaza, saying Israel has no choice but to finish the job and complete the defeat of Hamas.
Our goal is not to occupy Gaza. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas terrorists. The war can end tomorrow if Gaza, or rather if Hamas lays down its arms and releases all the remaining hostages.
Netanyahu insists that Israel has no starvation policy in Gaza.
If we had a starvation policy, no one in Gaza would have survived after 2 years of war. But our policy has been the exact opposite. We let in, as I said, almost 2 million tons of aid and sent millions of text messages, millions of phone calls to Gazans to get out of harm's way.
Varsin Ahabekian, Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs, says Israel's decision to take Gaza City is a very disappointing decision.
The Israeli government doesn't want any sort of Palestinian control in Gaza. Gaza is part of the entirety of the occupied territory.
Meanwhile, the number of Palestinian children who've died from hunger is at least 100 since the war began.
Look, maybe some choose to forget October 7th. We will not forget what happened, and we will do whatever it takes to defend our country and defend our people, defend our future. We will win the war, with or without the support of others.
I'm Donna Warder.
Texas Democrats don't appear to be backing down from their plan to delay a vote on redistricting. From the Lone Star State, here's Correspondent Clayton Neville.
Democrats from Texas begin this week with plans to continue their quorum break that's delaying a vote on Republican-backed congressional maps that President Trump says could give him 5 additional seats in the midterms. In recent weeks, the Texas Dems have met with Democratic governors across the country as some leaders pledged to retaliate by redrawing their state's maps to favor Democrats. New York Governor Kathy Hochul spoke with Fox News Sunday about the GOP's redistricting efforts.
I'm not going to let our democracy
be eroded away because there's a blatant power grab to maintain power in our nation's capital. This is what I call a legal insurrection.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has met with the Texas Democrats several times. He was on NBC's Meet the Press.
He's attempting to thwart federal law and take away 5 seats that are in the hands of black, brown, minority congresspeople and the people that they represent. He's taking those votes away.
The Texas lawmakers met with California Governor Gavin Newsom over the weekend. Newsom wants to call a special session on November 4th to ask voters to replace congressional maps drawn by an independent commission with redrawn maps by Democrats. Meanwhile, leaders in Texas still focused on getting the Dems back to the state capitol.
These lawmakers have abandoned their seat. This is the most un-Texan thing we've ever seen.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott appeared on Fox News Sunday.
Lawmakers are violating the law in Article 3 of the Texas Constitution, where they are required to act on bills because they're violating that constitutional mandate. That means they are not fulfilling their oath of office.
Civil arrest warrants have been issued for the Democrats who left Texas, and the state attorney general is working to enforce those in California and in Illinois. The state also fining Democrats for missing work, although that move is already tied up in the courts. But Democrats say they won't be deterred and plan to break quorum until the current special legislative session is over. I'm Clayton Neville.
Among the stories we're covering next, back after 5 months at the International Space Station, and a look at the new iPhone 17. Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The combination of fire, high temps, and water wreaked havoc on several parts of America over the weekend. Correspondent Rich Johnson has a look at a dangerous wildfire and weather conditions.
In Milwaukee, they canceled the final day of the Wisconsin State Fair thanks to water. Lots of water.
We're seeing reports from some parts of the city that have received more than a foot of rain.
Milwaukee Mayor Chevy Johnson on the flooding that can destroy a lot of things, including electric vehicles, according to Fire Chief Aaron Lipsky.
These batteries that are going through floods are just about spontaneously combusting and causing a very real fire problem.
In Lincoln, Nebraska, a severe thunderstorm with winds gusting to 91 miles an hour brought down a lot of trees. Lincoln Electric System VP Paul Christ told KOLN, wait for power crews before tackling that mess in the yard.
Think they're going to go clean up their tree in their backyard with a wire under it. We just need them to kind of wait until LAS gets through there and kind of makes the area safe.
To the west, it's fire. This California fire chief says the odds are definitely in Mother Nature's favor in extremely dry forests.
We have pinyon, juniper, pine up there that basically burns like gasoline.
This woman's back from a mandatory evacuation that included a lot of worrying.
We started talking about, okay, what do we do if we find out it's gone? You imagine watching the Palisades fires and feeling so bad for all those people and now thinking, might be our turn?
The comments from the homeowner and the fire chief courtesy of KNBC TV. Now, if you've escaped the fire and the rain, you just may be sweating it out for no big reason. Some 70 million of us are dealing with what could be the muggiest summer on record. I'm Richard Johnson.
From the United Kingdom, London police said Sunday that 532 people were arrested when supporters of a pro-Palestinian group recently outlawed as a terrorist organization intentionally broke the law to test the government's ability to enforce the ban. Some of the charges against the demonstrators included assaulting police officers. Backers of the group Palestine Action staged the protest to underscore their belief that the government is illegally restricting freedom of expression. Meanwhile, nearby in London, thousands peacefully marched for the release of Israeli hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. 4 astronauts returned to Earth after spending 5 months at the International Space Station. Correspondent Rika Ann Garcia reports.
We copy Stable 1. On behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
That was the welcome home message from the SpaceX team after the capsule parachuted into the Pacific off the Southern California coast, a day after departing the orbiting lab. Splashing down were 2 Americans, 1 Japanese, and 1 Russian. They launched earlier this year as the replacements for NASA's stuck astronauts. Boeing's botched Starliner demo kept 2 test pilots at the space station for more than 9 months instead of a week. This was SpaceX's 3rd Pacific splashdown with people on board, but the first for a NASA crew in 50 years. The last time NASA astronauts returned to the Pacific from space was during the 1975 Apollo-Soyuz mission. I'm Rika Ann Garcia.
A suspect gets a lengthy prison sentence in a case that sparked debate over safety for home health care workers. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
In Danielson, Connecticut, Michael Reese, charged in the killing of a visiting nurse, has pled guilty to murder and been sentenced to 50 years in prison. In 2023, Reese was on probation, staying at a halfway house after a previous conviction for stabbing and raping a woman in 2006. Joyce Grayson, a 63-year-old mother of 6, was beaten and strangled when she went to the Willimantic home to administer Reese's medication. Grayson's murder reignited calls for better protections and spurred Connecticut legislators to draft a new law aimed at improving safety for home health care workers. Reese's lawyers say he's apologetic and ashamed of what he did. Grayson's husband has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against her employer, alleging they ignored workers' safety concerns about treating dangerous patients. I'm Jennifer King.
America in the Morning technology reporter Chuck Palm has the day off. In tech news, Apple is gearing up for the launch of their iPhone 17 series, expected to be released in the first week of September. Although the company's not announcing details, the website Mac Rumors is reporting that the iPhone 17 model will likely be more expensive than iPhone 16 in the U.S. due to tariffs placed on goods coming from China and India. Wall Street analysts have estimated the iPhone 17 model could be $50 to $100 more expensive than the equivalent iPhone 16. As for the rumored high-tech changes, the iPhone 17 is expected to have an anti-reflective display, a thickness of just 5.5 millimeters, longer battery life, and camera upgrades. Let's turn to Robert Workman with a check of Monday sports.
Baseball Sunday, the Brewers rallied to beat the Mets 7-6 for their 9th consecutive victory. Isaac Collins took closer Edwin Diaz deep in the 9th. That's New York's 7th loss in a row. The Brew Crew are now 73-44 this season. That's 5 games better than the next best record in the majors. Diamondbacks had a franchise record 9 consecutive hits in an 8-run 5th as they rolled over the Rockies 13-6. Colorado has dropped 7 in a row. The Mariners are sailing right along. Their 6-3 win over the Rays, their 7th straight. Cal Raleigh hit his league-leading 45th home run. Astros ripped the Yankees 7-1. Jason Alexander and the Costanzas allowed just 3 hits. Blue Jays hit 3 homers in the last 2 innings to shade the Dodgers 5-4 in a matchup of division leaders. Shohei Ohtani hit his 41st for L.A. Phillies completed their sweep of the Rangers 4-2. Nationals blanked the Giants 8-0. Mackenzie Gore and the Vidals with a combo 3-hitter as the Nats bats roughed up Justin Verlander, who did become the 10th pitcher to reach 3,500 strikeouts.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool milestone and something that I really appreciate what's taken to get there.
Wins for the A's, Twins, Reds, Tigers, White Sox, Padres, Braves, and Cardinals. Justin Rose made up a 3-stroke deficit over the last 5 holes, then birdied twice in a playoff against U.S. Open champ J.J. Spaun to capture the St. Jude Championship in Memphis, the first stage of golf's FedEx Cup playoffs. The win puts the 45-year-old Englishman back in the world top 10 and secures his spot at next month's Ryder Cup. That's Monday Sports.
Coming up on America in the Morning, weekend box office recap and the loss of an American hero after these messages. Famous for, among other things, the immortal words, "Houston, we have a problem." Correspondent Ed Donahue reports on the death of a legendary astronaut.
Unfortunately, we're not landing on the moon, are we? I want this mark all the way back to Earth with time to spare. We never lost an American in space. We're sure as hell not going to lose one on my watch. Failure is not an option.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
NASA says the leader of the Apollo 13 moon mission, Jim Lovell, has died. He was 97. In NASA's early years, Lovell was one of its most traveled astronauts. In 1970, he was supposed to have been the fifth man to walk on the moon. Apollo 13's service module, carrying Lovell and two others, experienced a sudden oxygen tank explosion.
We knew we were in deep trouble. We didn't know how deep the trouble was.
The crew barely survived, spending 4 cold and clammy days in the cramped lunar module. Lovell spoke to the AP in 2020 about Apollo 13's legacy.
A situation where it appears that it's doomed to disaster, but with taking a positive attitude, as the crew did and people at Mission Control, turned an almost certain catastrophe into a successful recovery.
Lovell said after Apollo 13, he didn't worry about crises any longer. I'm Ed Donahue.
There's a new and surprising winner at this weekend's box office. Kevin Carr has details of a horror flick in the top spot.
This weekend at theaters, audiences put their money behind an original horror film and an old-school reboot sequel.
I don't understand at all. Why just her classroom? Why only her?
Weapons claimed the top spot at the box office with an impressive $42.5 million. Zach Cregger's follow-up to 2022's Barbarian has made him the go-to guy for horror. Like Jordan Peele, Cregger's background is in comedy, getting his start on the sketch show The Whitest Kids You Know.
Oh my God! What was that? Oh no, not again.
In a strong second place was Disney's Freakier Friday with $29 million. A return of the stars from the 2003 remake and strong word of mouth is helping this film make its way to being a hit.
The clock is ticking. We are going to find a solution. We are going to make it right.
The reigning champ for the past 2 weeks, the Fantastic Four First Steps, saw another steep drop, landing in third place with $15.5 million. This first film in the latest phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is losing some steam.
First time for everything, right?
The Bad Guys 2 stole fourth place with $10 million, putting it well on track to match the success of the first film.
Who are you?
Frank Drebin, Police Squad. The new version.
And finally, Pratt falling into fifth place with $8 million was the Naked Gun reboot. I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Monday, August 11th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trouts. This is Westwood One.